to our new public affairs show, Morgantown Today. During this show, we'll bring you a behind-the-scenes look into the issues that matter most to you, our viewer. I'm your host, Tori Januso.
And I'm Zach Hawk. Each week, we'll tackle a different topic or two, and the guests on our show will be the decision makers who make an impact on the Morgantown community.
Morgantown Today will also address matters of public policy and interest, including topics on education, culture, and politics. This show is made possible through a partnership between the City of Morgantown and the WVU Reed College of Media.
We have two topics we'll be discussing today. The first one is the impact that the coronavirus disease is having on the City of Morgantown as a whole, including its budget, businesses, and economy.
Our second topic for our show will be how the Black Lives Matter movement has affected our own community, including the City Council's approval of a Black Lives Matter Crosswalk in the Greenmont neighborhood.
Morgantown is home to 30,000 full-time residents. Add to that number the 30,000 students who attend West Virginia University, and Morgantown is officially the third largest city in the Mountain State. And as of September 7th, there are 163 new cases of COVID-19 in the state, bringing the total to 11,575 cases in West Virginia.
Joining us in the studio to give us more information on the precautions our city is taking during this unprecedented time is Interim City Manager Emily Mazzarelli. Thanks for joining us, Emily.
Thanks, Tori and Zach. It's so great to be here today.
Emily was the Assistant City Manager of Morgantown previously and is currently the Interim City Manager. She has direct oversight over the city's improvement budgets. Emily is responsible for carrying out policy enacted by the City Council, overseeing the administration of the city, and maintaining intergovernmental and university relationships.
Emily, thanks for joining us during this pandemic, even if it means we have to socially distance while in the studio. These are uncertain and difficult times that you have stepped into after being given the title of Interim City Manager in May. I bet you never imagined how big of a role you would play in guiding our community, businesses, and residents during a global pandemic.
That's definitely true. I had anticipated challenges, but definitely none of the ones that I've experienced over the last couple months.
Back in July, the Morgantown City Council took additional steps in an attempt to slow the spread of COVID-19. And they did this by making masks mandatory in all public places, and Governor Jim Justice signed this executive order. Why do you think it was so important to make face coverings mandatory in Monongalia County?
As all the health experts are saying, two things are really key in preventing the spread of the virus, and those are social distancing and face covering requirements. So as we look at how we can help Governor Justice's order, by doing that locally, we're able to impose fines and then also provide clarification for our residents and visitors on how that face covering requirement applies locally.
And it's my understanding that, like you said, residents who refuse to wear a mask in public could face fines anywhere from $25 to $500 and possibly even a misdemeanor on their record.
Yes, the city felt that those fines were important to put a little bit more bite behind the face mask requirement.
So where can Morgantown residents expect the money to be going towards? Some believe that it should be put back into the businesses that are struggling during this pandemic. Do you think any of these businesses will be seeing any of that money?
So these coronavirus measure fines, along with any of our other fines, go into unrestricted funds within our general fund budget. There is a revenue line called fines and fees. So this is actually where those go, and then those fines and fees collected can go towards any different number of expenditures from our general fund.
Emily, with the start of WVU being the biggest factor in the recent spike of positive COVID cases, I remember that over the summer, a large portion of Morgantown residents signed a petition asking WVU not to bring students back to campus. Over the past several weekends, we've seen long lines outside bars and many parties all over town. Who enforces group size limits?
So right now the city has various coronavirus-related orders in place that do restrict gathering size limits. This can be enforced by our city police, by WVU police, and fire marshals, a number of law enforcement agents. The petition to not have WVU students back, I think this is just a little bit of the general public's frustration with coronavirus in general, and starting to want to point fingers and blame different facets of the community.
While we saw bars briefly open, they had to quickly shut down again. How do you think these residents are feeling now that Mon County is once again in the red phase with some businesses closed again?
You know, I really think that folks are just continuing to feel very frustrated, and it's just such uncertain times. I think everyone anticipated that there would be an increase in number of cases, but regardless of who that population is, you know, very briefly we doubled our population, so I think that there's some expectation that those cases are going to rise.
Typically in Morgantown, the return of 30,000 plus students is exciting for the almost 6,000 businesses in Morgantown. But with the bars and some businesses being closed or only doing takeout and limited service, how has this impacted the economy so far?
I think coronavirus in general has obviously had a huge impact on the local economy. While definitely a rise in cases is not the most ideal for a lot of the businesses, I think it still helps to have you know, almost double the population back in town. The students in town for the university still need to eat, still need to get groceries. So that is, you know, potentially more patrons and more customers coming to your business. But obviously that comes with an increased risk as well.
So during this time, what is the city doing to financially help local businesses who may be struggling?
The city has put together a couple programs that we're trying to implement. One of them was actually an extension of an existing program. We had an outdoor dining permit program, which we have waived all fees to apply for that. And then we've also extended the borders of that as well. Another program we put into place was waiving parking requirements. So typically with our zoning, depending on what kind of business you are, you have to have so many parking spaces. But this has temporarily been waived as well, and that allows both businesses and restaurants to extend their floor plan out to include outdoor spaces, or to allow for different drive-up scenarios if you're doing drive-off, takeout, or drop-off, or something along those lines, or need to allow temporary signage in those parking spaces as well.
In addition to some of those resources you've just mentioned, is there a website business owners can go to or a number they can call to apply for any financial aid during COVID-19?
So the state has a couple different small business grants that are available. We do have that linked on our website under our coronavirus page. Additionally, the Morgantown Area Partnership has an entire page dedicated to businesses and how what different sources are out there for small businesses who are struggling financially during COVID.
Now, in addition to all of this support for local businesses, I'm sure that the supervising and policing of 30,000 students is no easy task. How are you and the City of Morgantown working with WVU officials to help deter large gatherings, encouraging wearing face masks and social distancing, all to help slow the spread of COVID-19?
The university and the city have been working together very closely, and that goes as well with the other local municipalities and cities and the county as well. We are constantly communicating, constantly seeing, you know, what orders can be put in place, where are some of the gatherings potentially continuing to occur, and how we can specifically address those. Communication is really key in figuring out what's going to be the most effective, how we're able to enforce it, what issues we're running into. So we just continually talk to the university and other government agencies around.
So speaking of that chain of communication, is the university asking the city for input on decisions regarding students being responsible off campus?
Absolutely. The university has reached out to me personally. I actually had a call over Labor Day weekend regarding a number of the house parties that had occurred, and how they could potentially respond to that, and how the city and the city's police force could help them in their enforcement of those as well. We have been talking to them as classes go online, and what different effect the changes that the university are going to make is going to have on the city and the community as a whole.
And moving along to testing, how is the City of Morgantown providing access to COVID-19 testing for its residents, and does it cost anything to be tested?
So testing really comes in two different forms. If you actually are ill and experiencing some symptoms of COVID-19, you would just go through the hospital or minute clinics or something along those lines and get tested through that. And I believe those are typically covered by insurance to some degree. The city has been working with the health department, the local county health department, on providing free testing. So these are open to the general public. You do not need to be experiencing any symptoms. It was really interesting in a conversation that I had with the health department that having a whole bunch of these really large open testings don't necessarily turn out more results. It's really more focusing on kind of almost doing some of the community tracing. But those testings so far have been provided through the Mon County Health Department, and then have been other ones that have been provided through the Army National Guard at the state level as well.
Now, kind of moving on a little bit to vaccines, I know everyone's wishing for the day when this coronavirus will be gone and over with. When there does become a vaccine, will the city play any role in potential vaccine distribution?
That's a really great question. It's so early to even be able to fathom an answer and a response to that. There is just so many unknowns to be able to tackle before we get to that point.
So a lot of our conversation to this point has been about the impact that COVID has had on Morgantown for its residents. But how has it financially affected the city and its budget?
So the city, primarily, our revenue sources come from B&O, or business and occupation taxes, and then we recently also, starting July 1st, implemented an additional 1% sales tax. We also get funding from hotel motel tax and a number of other sources. So as the economy has taken a hit, there's less people traveling, there's less people buying and selling, there's less people spending money here locally. That has a direct impact and decrease in the revenue that's generated for the city.
So this decrease in revenue sounds like it will be leading to a reduced budget. What would a reduced budget mean for city projects? And in particular, are there any projects that might take the biggest hit?
So when we passed our budget in March and April of 2020, we had been anticipating the reductions that we may see for COVID. So we actually reduced our general fund budget by 10%. So that's over $3 million just in our general fund. And most of our capital improvement expenditures actually all got pushed out another year. So as far as the impact to projects, nearly all of our capital expenditure projects have been postponed for the year. And then on a smaller scale, we did not do a paving project this year. Typically we do almost $2 million worth of paving every year, and we did not do that this summer. The city is operating on a spending freeze and a hiring freeze, so we are really trying to control any and all money that goes out the door.
So that does sound like with a few things on hold or even being canceled, the city might need plans for the future. What plans are in place right now to rebound once this global pandemic is behind us, there's a vaccine, and we return to a pre-COVID normal?
I think as a local government, particularly in a college town, even once the economy starts rebounding, it's going to take a little bit longer for the city to recover financially. We have been lucky enough to be able to receive some funding through the CARES Act that has definitely been able to kind of go into a financial stabilization and contingency fund should we see continue to have incredibly difficult times financially, so that we can continue to provide those essential city services. But I imagine that we will continue to have to be very, very cautious about any and all money and projects that go on.
Right, so with federal and even maybe state funding being uncertain looking to the future, what impact will COVID-19 have on the fiscal year 2022 budget process?
We are going to be starting the fiscal year 2022 budgeting process here probably December, January timeframe. And I know I can be certain that we are going to continue to have impacts financially from COVID, even if the one-day hoped vaccine does come out. So I'm sure we will continue to be very financially conservative as we plan the budget for the upcoming year.
Emily, going off of the city's budget and economy, in July you laid out plans to create a Black Lives Matter Crosswalk in Greenmont. Where will the money come from to pay for this Black Lives Matter Crosswalk?
Crosswalks are funded out of our general fund from our street department. Some of those items are funded through the municipal service fee in recent years. So this is very similar to other crosswalks and roadway markings that we do elsewhere.
And I understand that you were actually the one that proposed this crosswalk in front of City Council. Why do you feel it's so important to have this Black Lives Matter crosswalk in Greenmont?
The city administration was approached with the idea and recognizing the importance that this Black Lives Matter movement has had across the country, and also being probably the most diverse city within all of West Virginia. I really felt that it was important for Morgantown to make a stance and make a visual support of this movement, and council was very supportive of the idea to be able to, put this piece of artwork that also serves another purpose in to be able to show our support for the community and people of color.
So as the city is interested in showing support for various causes, what other initiatives has the city taken to ensure a safe, inclusive, and diverse environment?
Our council in recent history has developed their welcoming statement, which is really truly an impactful statement that says that the City of Morgantown is welcoming to anybody of color, race, religion, ethnic background, veteran status, sexual orientation. We really do want to be the home and of diversity within West Virginia as a whole, and we try to stand behind that in how we take different actions as a city.
I think we can all agree, Emily, that you stepped in during challenging times with the COVID-19 pandemic and social unrest around the country.
I agree with you, Zach. Thank you so much, Emily, for agreeing to come into our TV studio today and discuss two very important topics, both in our community and across the nation.
Thank you, guys. It was so great talking to you today.
That wraps up this edition of Morgantown Today. I'd like to once again thank our guest, Morgantown Interim City Manager Emily Muzzarelli. I'm Zach Hall.
And I'm Tori Januso. This show is made possible through a partnership between the City of Morgantown and the WVU Reed College of Media. It's taped at the WVU Waterfront TV studio. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.